to Cannaspirations podcast episode number 1. Today we're going to be discussing cannabis business plans. My name is Warren Harris. I'm the Vice President of Regulatory Compliance here at Cannaspire. And by way of introduction, a little of my background. I have been a cannabis cultivator for about 18 years. So any way you can grow cannabis, indoor, outdoor, full sun organic, clean room hydroponic, I have done it at some point at scale. I'm also a trained college professor who is PhD ABD, so I have experience with teaching students and developing educational materials. For the last 3 years or so, I've been working with Cannaspire, writing business license applications and cannabis business plans for our clients to help them win their business license applications and get started up in a number of states across the nation. I'll go ahead and turn it over to my co-host, Beck Selman.
Thanks, Warren. I'm Beck Selman. I was a cultivator for several years. I grew soil organic, hydroponic, indoor, and I studied plant sciences and majored in biology. And then I went into food manufacturing and I received numerous food safety certificates, and I became a proficient compliance writer for the GMP facility. I've been a technical writer and subject matter expert for Cannaspire for almost 2 years now, and I've become proficient in developing business plans and financial pro forma to help businesses get licensed.
All right, right on. Thank you, Beck. So let's go ahead and dive into our topic today, cannabis business plans. And we are Cannaspire, the cannabis consultants you need to succeed. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So why do you need a business plan? The first thing I tell my clients is to ask themselves who their audience is that they're developing this business plan for. Primarily, we see a lot of clients that are seeking investment, looking to raise capital to start their business. So in that type of plan, you would need to say how this business is going to succeed and how this is going to make your investors money based upon shares or dividends. We also see a lot of business plans developed for state license applications, in which case there are specific requirements based upon scorable criteria issued by the state. So you really need to pay attention to whatever those criteria are laid out in the state rubric so that you maximize your score with the state and give yourself the best possible chance to win your license. A lot of business owners actually need this to give to their banks in order to open bank accounts. Cannabis is considered a high-risk industry, so they won't even issue a bank account without some sort of financial planning to demonstrate that you actually know what you're doing and are going to make a profit and just not go belly up very shortly after opening. We see a lot of clients that use this to give their pitch to municipalities, and they give their business plans to municipal managers. And this helps the local city help to understand what it is that they are doing with their business, what their delivery areas may be, what products they're offering, how they're going to handle crowds, how they're going to handle odor mitigation. These are the sort of questions that local municipal managers usually want to see answered, and it's helpful to put into your plan. And then lastly, for your own understanding as a business owner, I do see a lot of clients that are really savvy in business from owning and running other enterprises, but what they lack is cannabis experience. So this is where doing the research and developing a really robust business plan can help you really know what it is that you're planning on doing, what your strategy is, how you're going to get it to market, and how you're going to succeed financially. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to my co-host, and we'll talk about what's in these plans.
Thank you, Warren. Excellent point you made there. Understanding your state's requirements for the business plan. This is one example of a few of the key points that are in a business plan, but your state application might have very different criteria for your business plan and what the specific layout and what they want in that business plan for application purposes. Generally, you will have an executive summary, and this typically the first section of your business plan, and it's written last after the rest of the plan is developed. The executive summary is crucial because it gives readers a quick understanding of the business and why it is likely to succeed. It's a concise overview of the key components of the full-length business plan, wrapped up in about a page. Next, you would have a company description, where you provide a detailed description of the business, the mission and goals, the legal structure, is it an LLC or a C Corp, and an overview of the products and services. You might describe your municipality and how your dispensary is going to fit in with the local aesthetics and architecture there as well. Management profile will be next, and that's you're going to describe your management, a brief introduction to the key members of your management team, highlighting their relevant experience and their qualifications. Do they have any cannabis experience? Is one of the most important questions we always ask people. And you want to outline the roles and responsibilities. For a regulatory compliance standpoint, it's important to know who's responsible for what, especially when it comes to legal compliance. Next is a marketing analysis, and it includes information about your target market, its size, the growth trends, customer demographics, and any specific municipality needs. It also discusses your competition, market share, competitive analysis. Important for developing your market and sales strategy, knowing that competitive analysis. You would next develop your strategy and describe your strategies for reaching your target audience, your pricing, your sales channels, how you're going to advertise, and what promotions you plan on running. Importantly, how are you going to retain those customers? Are you going to offer a loyalty or reward point program? And then next is a SWOT analysis. That's an analysis of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's optional, but it can be very useful in identifying and focusing on revenue opportunities, staying ahead of competitors, and avoiding regulatory compliance penalties. The last part would be your financial plan. And these are important projections of your financial outlook, for usually covering the first 3 to 5 years. These include your sales projections, profit and loss statements, your balance sheets, and your cash flow statements. And now if you're seeking funding, you'll want to specify the amount needed, how you're going to use the funding, and what you're offering investors or lenders in the way of shares, dividends, or repayment. And if you are seeking funding, you will need to explain how you're going to allocate those funds, and whether they're for the startup cost, expansion, marketing, or for other purposes. This establishes the company's operating costs, annual bills, contractors, or even rent and utilities.
That's a great point, Beck. You definitely want to be able to demonstrate to your investors how you're going to spend their money, how you're going to use it to be successful moving forward. So really good information there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the pro forma, the nuts and bolts of the actual business plan. These are those financial projections that Beck was just referring to. So really the questions that you're answering with a financial forecast through a pro forma is how your company is going to make a profit. And the way that you figure this all out is by establishing very strictly what your costs of goods sold are. These are the costs to either produce your cannabis, to produce your manufactured goods. It's not the costs of your retail sales, and we'll get more into that later. Your personnel costs, this is how much you're paying in salaries to make your business run. Your startup costs, this would be your retrofit, any cultivation or manufacturing equipment, any retail sales or POS equipment. What do you need to get started to even do day one? And then, of course, your operations costs, right? And so this could be a wide variety of fees, such as utilities, rent, security, cash handling, POS, seed to sale. This is going to be basically the core of what you're spending your money on. And then lastly, your revenue forecast, which is going to be your sales projections, what products you're selling and how much money you anticipate to make off of those. So now we can go ahead and take a deeper dive into what are your costs of goods sold.
Your cost of goods sold are going to be the cost to produce your product. There's very strict IRS regulations, IRS guidelines on what you can and cannot deduct as a tax as a cannabis business. And we always recommend that you work at the end of the year with a very experienced cannabis CPA to help you differentiate these costs. But these costs are typically, going to be your cost to distribute the product. If you're a manufacturer or a distributor or a cultivator, it's going to be your packaging, labeling, and the cost of your equipment to grow or manufacture that cannabis, and then the maintenance on that equipment as well. And included in your cost of goods will be your production labor, but it's clear to specify that this would not be your retail labor or any administrative labor. It's only the labor it took to produce that product.
Thanks, Beck. So now let's go ahead and take a look at revenue streams, right? We just talked about the cost to produce this. Now, how do you make revenue? And so what I would say is it really comes down to what your state licensing allows. So here you see cannabis cultivation. Well, for instance, in New Jersey, a cannabis cultivator actually has two potential revenue streams through the sale of bulk cannabis flower and trim, either to dispensaries or manufacturers, or through the sale of clones and plants to other cannabis cultivators. That is allowed by their license. In New York, the sale of clones is a separate nursery license. So if you're just a cannabis cultivator, really your main revenue stream in a state like New York would just be the dried cannabis flower, or, you could do fresh frozen as well, but this would be, again, for, dispensaries or manufacturers. So always know what your state regulations allow in terms of your licensing. So here we see manufacturing, a beautiful jar of golden distillate here. And again, know your state code, right? So New Jersey, for instance, has pretty restrictive laws surrounding what manufacturers can and can't make. Currently, they just can't produce some of the confections, cookies, brownies, candies, things like that. We do hear that all of that is going to change very soon. But again, you want to make sure that you're producing only compliant products within what your state allows. So New York, on the other hand, allows the full gamut, infused drinks and sodas, candies, as long as they're not, in certain shapes or advertised to be appealing to kids, things like that. So know your state regulations, and this helps you determine what your niche in the industry is, sort of what product offerings you can have, and then what it is that you're going to provide. Are you going to be the most affordable product? Are you going to be the most premium product? So here we see dispensary sales. And again, what's your niche, right? So even a dispensary, the products that you curate and put on your shelf sort of make a difference and differentiate you from your competitors. So, you could either be the most affordable, you could be the most premium. Are you in an area with really high foot traffic that's going to get a lot of tourism? Are you in a remote area where you need a really wide delivery area in order to meet your, local clientele's needs? Can you do curbside pickup? Can you do consumption lounges? These are all things to consider when you're sort of laying out what your business will be and where your revenue streams are going to come from. And then lastly, we have wholesale distribution and delivery. So what I would say is wholesale distribution, that tends to be sort of a capital intensive business model. You need enough money to be able to go into a licensed cultivator or licensed manufacturer and buy in bulk to get a lower rate from these producers. Then you would take the product and with your fleet of delivery vehicles, After storing it in your warehouse facility, you have your staff distribute it to dispensaries and delivery services throughout the state. So again, lots of labor, a large storage area. It basically needs a lot of capital to be successful, but you do have the potential to, take the burden off of cultivators who are trying to find, outlets to sell their product and get it a little bit more affordably than the market rate, and then basically make that money off of marketing the product. Then you have delivery services, which can be a much more lean business model. For instance, New York allows bicycle delivery in order to give licensed dispensaries a sort of business model that can compete with what's already existent in the traditional market in New York. And I think that's actually great. That being said, you still have security needs. Other states, you have to have vehicles with GPS, with storage cages, and even environment controlled storage, because, you don't want your oils and cartridges and topicals and things like that going bad in the back while you're out on delivery, or, just because you had a flat tire. So those are pretty much your core revenue streams for cannabis. Now we can go ahead and take a little bit closer look at one of these projection tables, and I'll turn it back over to my subject matter expert, Beck.
Thanks, Warren. Here's an example of a profit and loss statement for a New York dispensary. It shows your annual sales, your gross profit after deducting your cost of goods. And here you will estimate your operating expenses that are not associated with the cost of goods. So your administrative labor, retail rent, and things of that nature. At the bottom, you'll see your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Then you will take out your taxes and you're left with your net profit. This profit and loss statement will be different based on the business type, of course. For instance, utilities for a dispensary are an operating expense, whereas for a cultivator, they would fall under cost of goods sold per the IRS guidance for cannabis businesses. This is an example of this isn't just an example, and will vary greatly depending on your business type and the state that you're in, the taxes associated with that state. And we hope this brief introduction to cannabis business plans has been informative. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Cannaspire.
Right on. Thanks for coming in for our first episode of Cannaspirations, folks. We look forward to seeing you all in the near future.